we can teach anybody about the tech. We can teach them about the business, we can do this, but what we can't teach is that je ne sais quoi, that understanding of this is how the business works. And we've recruited people that have got music degrees, people that have no formal qualifications whatsoever, people that have come from hospitality backgrounds or language background, people you would never think that person would make a good technical or good security tester, because they just, the way they think and the way they understand people and the psychology of it. Part of my role is that security versus operability. So, because I can make your network 100% secure. I'll turn all the power off, I'll take all the hard disks out, put them in a safe, and it's great. You know, it's secure. You're never going to access it, great. But operability, rubbish. So we go the other way. We take everything out, we take all the passwords off, turn everything on. In 10 minutes, it'll be compromised. Great operability, no security. So it's that balance between the two. AI, everything has its place. Like I say, I wake up on a Monday, I want to go to work. I want to go and work for this company. I want to go to see the girl, the guy, Sabika. Sabika is brilliant. She knows an incredible amount of stuff. And I really enjoy working with Sabika. If you don't get that feeling, you either look at the job and say, how can I change that? Or you look for a new job.
Hi, John. Welcome to Be Fearless podcast. It's a pleasure to have you here with us.
Hi, Alex. Good to see you. A pleasure to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited for our conversation, and I'd like to introduce you to our guests. So, John Dunne is actually part of Grant Thornton, and we've previously interviewed Sabika from Grant Thornton, Luxembourg. So now we're moving up north to the UK. So John is head of IT security in UK, and you have nearly 3 decades of experience in this space, and you've seen what it takes to lead security for some of the world's largest companies. So I'm super excited for this conversation. And maybe you can take us back to the 90s when you started at PwC as a junior information system auditor. Like, how was your security journey and how you became a security leader you are today?
Cool. Yeah. So, I started when I was in school. This didn't exist. Cybersecurity as we know it didn't exist. So it was really when I left university. I actually trained to be a chef. I was never going to be anything to do with computing. So it was really kind of a sea change for that. I joined Pricewaterhouse as it was then, with their systems assurance, and that was very much the kind of early days of computer security, because we needed to assure the systems. So the JD Edwards, the Oracle, the SAP, the initial SAP as it started. So we trained a lot on that. We trained how to be accountants. We trained how to be technical people. And also, interesting, we also trained how to break into all the exciting stuff, hacking, cracking, how to layer money and money laundering. Was really, really interesting times. So I started out at Pricewaterhouse. I worked on large corporate clients. I worked on large public sector clients. I was going all across the UK and into Europe with various clients. And then just kind of over the next 10 years, I was just building up my experience, and I was understanding about systems and all things, working on incredibly different platforms. I was working on VMS, on VMX, and even working on what was then this wonderful, Windows 3.1, Windows 95. Wow, this was kind of breaking ground on these wonderfully strange kind of software. Bill Gates was the guy who was supposed to be really interesting. And then we did things like, looking at Linux and doing command line audits in Linux and Unix, and standing in very cold data centers, kind of running the command shell scripts, the pseudo scripts from there. And that was the kind of technical side. It was really, really good. And then I was moving, as I gained more experience, moving up into managerial, into consultancy. And I kind of took a diversion. I just, I was fine with systems assurance, but then I started leading, we did penetration testing for our clients. So we're doing, hacking, cracking, freaking, using tools like John the Ripper and Kane. These are hacker tools. Nowadays we've got, good penetration testing and security consultancy tools. But that back then we were using, all the stuff that all the hackers use. The kind of the John McAfee's of the world were using, which was really interesting. And then around 2009, I had a young family back then. And also, I kind of got fed up with just. I would, as a consultant, you go into a client and you do a piece of work, you write a report, you present it to the board, and more often than not, you then leave the client and then you move on to the next client, and you work, and that's the nature of the job, and it's great. But I wanted to kind of stick with it and see how the recommendations that I'd made were implemented, and how can I help, and how can I be, more helpful to those organizations. And I was very lucky because my company was looking for somebody it wasn't a CISO role per se to start with. It was that kind of, as my boss described it, the middle ground between the IT and the business. So we were trying to build the security and ramp up the security just as everybody else was in the firms and the various professional practices. So I moved into that role, and we built the team from scratch. We built a lot of the controls. We did all the kind of certifications, so 27001, Cyber Essentials, et cetera, and that's just built from there. So now we have a nice, big, solid, mature security practice, both internal and external, which we can leverage.
It must have been so empowering, just going through from consulting to actually be the one implementing, because I think this is the biggest sort of challenge when you do all of this consulting. You're like, okay, who is actually going to do all the work now? Because that's the difficult part. And moving towards actually doing all of that. Was it difficult to build the team from ground up, like considering that you didn't have that experience before?
I was, again, lucky in a lot of my career because I had some good friends and some very good mentors. And also I could pick and choose people that I wanted because you build IT security people. Recruiting them is difficult, but recruiting people that have got the right skill set, so the understanding of technology, is then you can then kind of grow them the way you want them and teach them and make them understand what work you're doing. And one thing people, I think, don't appreciate about this kind of role is we can teach anybody about the tech. We can teach them about the business. We can do this, but what we can't teach is that je ne sais quoi, that understanding of this is how the business works. And we've recruited people that have got music degrees, people that have no formal qualifications whatsoever, people that have come from hospitality backgrounds or language backgrounds, or, just complete people you would never think that person would make a good technical or good security tester, because the way they think and the way they understand people and the psychology of it.
This is so interesting. I don't think I've ever heard anyone talking about how someone came from hospitality industry and were able to grasp such an intense knowledge when it comes to security.
Yeah, it's surprising. Yeah, we can teach you the tech, but what we can't teach is that you have it yourself. That kind of understanding about people. Yeah, and understanding how people work and how people react in different scenarios and situations. So all it is the tech is empowering these people to do their jobs. So if we understand how those people think, we can then adapt the technology and the controls to how they're working.
Yeah, that's. I think this is very empowering for a lot of people that are thinking of entering cybersecurity and a little bit intimidated by all the requirements that are out there.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always say, give it a go, because you never know, and you'll find the right people. The right people are always worthwhile. The people investing in.
Yeah. So if somebody that never done, let's say, security before, were to reach out to you and ask, "Hey, John, what are the first few things that I should focus on if I'm thinking of entering this field?" What would you advise them?
First thing is get a grounding in the tech. Understand that you actually want to do it, and as mundane as it sounds, join a service desk. Do your 2 years on a service desk, because that will teach you so much about technology and people and how they interact, and that will then give you that base knowledge. Also, look at the security. Do some reading. Don't jump straight into qualifications. They are useful, but they're not the be all and end all. Understand what the tech is and what you want to be, because there's so many different aspects of security. Do you want to do a certified ethical hacker? Do you want to do consultancy? Do you want to do the tech? Do you want to do systems architecture? There's so many different aspects, and you don't you don't do them all at the same time. You can start in one role and move to another. So I would say start slow or start small on service desk, and that gives you a great grounding, and that then build into the role that you want to do.
Yeah, I think this is great advice. And I think when it comes to being a CISO, I would consider it more of a generalist position where you're supposed to have bits and pieces of different parts of security. Yeah. But if, let's say, you're somewhere mid-level or someone starting, thinking of becoming a CISO, what kind of path you would recommend them to choose? Like, is it network security? Is it something else that you think, okay, more like realistic?
Yeah. If you're in that role, you'll already have a tech understanding. So what you need to do is, how does that tech affect the business? Because that's a big part of my role now. I look at the business and say, where's the risk? Where's the technical risk come from? And I'm not going to use the dreaded letters AI, because everybody uses that. That's the start of a 10. But what's the business trying to do? I look at my business now. We've got a number of different initiatives that we're implementing, and they're all about training, and they're about growing the business and all these kind of things. So I look at the risk of, okay, so we're looking at zero trust. Okay, so that's going to expand our profile. There's going to be our attack surface is going to get much bigger. So what controls do we need in place? Do we need web browsers, CASBs, those sort of things? How are they going to all fit together? How are they all going to work together? So we got a holistic controls framework rather than just disparate bits of software that'll be reporting from various aspects. Yeah. So as a CISO, you need to have that kind of overarching view. You'll understand the tech, but how does the tech protect the business?
Yeah, I think this all at the end is related to risk, as you said, where the risk is emerging from. And I know you don't want to mention this dreaded two letters, AI.
Yeah.
But this is really today becoming one of the biggest attack vectors that is helping attackers create more sophisticated attacks that help to hack into systems way faster, way cheaper, way easier. So what can security do today to start preparing against that attack surface?
Well, the threat's always been the same. Yeah, the threat is people from outside are trying to get into your system and steal data, cause mayhem, that sort of problem. AI is just making it easier. So AI is a double-edged sword. Yeah. So whilst it's for malicious actors, it's helping them create more complex or more sophisticated attacks. You can also use AI to identify and protect against those. So you're looking at those tools and saying, how can they help me do what I'm doing? We use AI in our various in our XDR and the other bits of software to identify problems before they become problems, or identify threats before they become threats. So they actually protect us a lot. And also the classic AI threat is you get a voicemail or you get a message ostensibly from the head of the business saying, pay this money. Well, there are other controls. You can have checkbacks, you can have passphrases, you can have various other physical controls or logical controls that will protect on those processes. So it's just understanding that risk and saying, right, AI is not this super demon. It's just another tool. And then you just build the controls to address that risk.
That does make sense. But if we extrapolate it to the layer above, let's say, I imagine that at Grant Thornton, there are a lot of clients, consultants that access their work via the browser, and browser becomes one of the biggest attack vectors out there. How would you go about protecting this attack surface? Also considering that right now AI players are creating their own browsers where users can go ahead and not only be more productive, but also have to give more permissions.
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a number of SaaS products that we obviously we have to identify, we have to work with using browsers, and there's a whole raft of controls problems in there, because there's AI powered phishing pages, there's malicious browser extensions, browser and browser attacks. There's a whole raft of this stuff that is coming at us, and you can use hardened browsers, you can use that technology, but it's one control in the layer of controls. Do we restrict browser access? We restrict put in a hardened browser. we have a number of different controls, like say in our CASB or something. You limit the functionality that's allowed in that particular browser. Like I say, it is the layering of controls, because there's not one control that will be, answer everything. It's always got to be process, procedure, control.
Do you see many enterprises starting to recognize this? Because I think there are two schools of thoughts when it comes to security. Some people like to have one tool that would solve 100 problems, and some people like to have multiple solutions, but at the same time, you have to take into account costs. Which school of thought are you?
I've seen them both. I tend toward the kind of multiple controls, primarily because I'm old school. Yeah, I've seen this sort of the multiple controls, and I've seen the problems as well, because we used to have scenarios where we would have, say, two different XDR, and they were fighting against each other about which should negate the malicious software that's coming in, or the malicious email. And in one scenario where actually neither of them were both kind of waiting for them both to address this threat, but neither of them did, so the thing actually got through the network. Using one tool, one silver bullet to kind of fix everything, that has an inherent danger as well, because what if that doesn't work? And you then kind of say, all right, well, put all your eggs in one basket, then starts to be a risky strategy as well. I think it's got to fit for the business. Certainly from my perspective, I would say multiple controls, multiple layers. That way, and you obviously check to make sure that there's no holes. That way it's more of an overhead, but you've more confidence in it with one solution. And there are some very good solutions out there, and they are extremely resilient, but there's always the risk that something would go wrong, or there's a hole, or there's a 0 day or something, and it will get through.
Yeah, I do see actually the best solutions out there are the ones that are able to stay ahead of all the attacks that are coming out, because as you said, we have to respond to the corresponding attack surface and be able to respond fast enough. So, tricky question, but are you pro using AI browsers in your environment, or you're against it?
I've not yet made a decision, I think, and I know that's a bit of a cop-out, so apologies. But I would certainly use them if I could understand or identify a risk and consider that they would address that risk. I think they certainly are a tool that is coming, and I would certainly advocate using them in the future. We have a problem, though, because we've developed bespoke products that we then ship out to our consultants, ship out to our clients, etc. So we need to ensure that they will work with that browser and work seamlessly with that browser. If it doesn't, if it then causes problems, and that's the part of the problem, is you have to do all the testing and development prior to release, because if we then release and then find there's got a big problem, we've got to rework everything. So we go with safe. So we'll go with an established browser because we know it's safe, because we know it will work with our product, and we can tie it down. Maybe not always, to the best the way that it should be, but enough. And that's where my role really is. Part of my role is that security versus operability. So, because I can make your network 100% secure. I'll turn all the power off. I'll take all the hard disks out, put them in a safe, and it's great. It's secure. You're never going to access it. Great. But operability, rubbish. So we go the other way. We take everything out. We take all the passwords off, turn everything on. In 10 minutes, it'll be compromised. Great operability, no security. So it's that balance between the two. Where do we, AI, everything has its place, everything has its, way of doing it. We need to just understand what's the best way to use it.
Yeah, it actually ties perfectly to my next question, because how do you go about advising your teams when a major client security requirements conflicts with business productivity?
We've had that. We don't get it very often, but we do have those kind of scenarios, because we're a people business. We're a service organization. We want to make sure that our clients are happy with what we're doing, and we work to the best of our ability for them. And sometimes what they want is not good for what, the way we operate. And ultimately we have to come down on, look, we're not just responsible to one client, regardless of how big you are, regardless of how important you are or how much your fees are. We've got to view it as your one client versus potentially 50,000 others. So it's the security of the network. thankfully, when those scenarios have come up, we can usually find an amicable solution. Yeah, there's rarely, if ever, I can't think of a scenario where someone says, no, I absolutely want this and I won't have anything else, regardless of how unsecure it might be.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful that today so many people start to recognize the cost associated with it, because there is a certain level of friction that would be present when you have security controls, and it's just a matter of how open-minded a leader is when it comes to security and actually understanding the risks behind it.
Yeah, I mean, this is it. The attitudes have changed. We've had people, 30 years ago, we had people with, this is it, I want it my way, or no, not at all. Nowadays, we've got people that are much more open to security. There's been that much more, obviously, a few weeks ago with the big retailers, Marks and Spencer's and Coles and Harrods. It's almost the other way. During that scenario, I had the senior leadership team ringing me up saying, are we affected? Is it us? And it's like, no, we aren't, because we've got these good controls in place. But they are so aware of these situations now that they are instantly kind of on the ball when things happen.
Wow. I actually, I did assume that a lot of security leaders take all of this attack seriously and close to heart. Is there a typical framework that you go about, let's say, when a major news breaks out, and then you go ahead and consider, okay, are we actually protected? What is the thinking when something like this happens?
Well, we have our ISO 20000, our service management certification. So we have a very established incident management process. So should the news break, I'm fairly confident in our controls. I shouldn't say that, because obviously somebody will attack us. But I am fairly confident. I'm fairly confident in our controls. But we always review, because we don't know. Something could happen. Anything could happen. So if we do get a notification, if we do get a threat warning, then we have a very established process where we convene a problem manager or incident management team. We all have our roles. We all move to those roles, and we just check. And thankfully, touch wood, nothing's happened so far.
That's great news, and let's keep it this way. So nothing.
Absolutely, please, yes.
Nothing really happens, but I think as a general user, whenever you do your work and just trying to do your job and be productive, I think one of the things that typically happens is that users don't realize how certain activities make them vulnerable. Mm-hmm. And one that particularly comes to mind is browser extensions. You did mention it earlier, because I still think not many users recognize how much power these little things have over our whole work environment. Yeah. How do you go about educating your users about the risks associated with extensions?
Absolutely. Well, that's it. It's education. So it's training. We lock down the browser as much as we can, but obviously there's functionality that we need to keep enabled, because it needs to work with the various bespoke products, or we built something, or whatever requirement. But that is a weakness, because then people can get, like say, extensions that will self-install, or they'll click on something. But it is about, this is what I mean when I say we don't just rely on the tech controls. You've got to train people. You've got to have process. They've got to have established routines. So if I click on something, or a customer clicks on something, and they get an unusual message, a pop-up that says, call this number, or you're suddenly infected, blah, 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 then people freak out. They know, call the service desk. Don't just click on the link that's suddenly cropped up, or call the phone number or anything. It's like, don't do any of that. Call the service desk. Tell them what you've seen. They'll advise you. Yeah, so it's again that layering of controls, people controls, make sure everybody understands and get the message out. And that way, it's not perfect, but it's a lot better than no one says a lot better. The controls will be better as we move into AI, as we move into hardened browsers. That would be better. But we've got to ensure that it works with our environment, it works with what we're trying to do and what we're trying to achieve, and get that balance of operability and security as well.
Yeah, and I think today, as our work and personal life becomes so blended, that's another way how attackers like to target users. And the one platform that particularly comes into play is LinkedIn. I think this is the vector that a lot of attackers use to, let's say, message someone and say, "Hey, you're such an incredible hire. We'd like to steal you for our
Yeah,
company." And that's how company credentials can get compromised.
absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, how do you go ahead educating or putting certain measures into place to, how to say, safeguard this behavior?
Well, again, it's with regard to people's behavior, it's through training. Because we could lock down LinkedIn, but they would just find another avenue. We have clients, we have that don't allow access to social media, LinkedIn, etc., webmail, that sort of thing. We can't. We do go down that route to a degree, but also because we've got such a diverse range of clients, there are some bits that we need to we need just purely for the work we do. So again, it's education, it's multi-factor authentication, it's just understanding the risks, and then obviously then there's the risk if someone does get an email and said, hey, click on this link and upload your CV kind of thing. Well, we know that's a malicious link. Our software will pick that up, and then we can have the conversation with the people saying, look, why did you click on this link? What was going on there? And also there's a DLP element to this as well, because people will say, oh, actually, I've got some IPR. I want to, I can use this to trade with value. So we've got our DLP controls to stop people taking, stuff out of the network that they shouldn't.
Yeah, yeah. It all makes sense. It's as you said, it's all about education, and this is something that you can't really skip this step. Um, as you talk to users, and oftentimes I just imagine if I were in the shoes of a user, what I would do. And you were speaking about clients, right? Is there any particular story that comes to mind when, let's say, you caught something just in time or something almost happened, and then you were like, okay, we are so glad that we had this measure in place?
Oh God, I say, no, change the names, eh?
Yeah.
Things happen every day. We have people that just and it's not malicious. 99% of this stuff is not malicious. It's just because people are busy. People have busy lives, like you say, their work lives and their personal lives are blended. We've had people click on links that they thought were absolute. They would swear on their lives they were sure about this link. It's a link to their granny's wedding photos or something like that sort of thing. But it's been compromised, or it's got so and so malicious link to it. We've got clients that have sent us stuff that in good faith, saying this stuff is this is the evidence you've asked for, this is the audit accounts or whatever you've asked for, and it is riddled with with malicious software, and it goes into our sandbox, and we tell them and say, look, do you know this has come with this? I said, oh, wow, when did you know that? It's like, we just found it. How long has it been working? How much of a problem for you? So it's, there's so many different stories and things like that, but that's the kind of background noise that we deal with every day. I know this is a nature of our business. So we have to do it securely, and we have to be sensitive to people's understanding and clients' understanding of this as well. Because whilst we do it every day, telling somebody, oh, hang on, that link might be compromised, or that they've got to understand this is not something that we're trying to belittle them or have a go at them about. This is something that they just need to understand and potentially do something about.
Yeah, yeah. And then I think when people frequently mention that employees are typically the weakest link and make them feel, as you said, belittled. I think as productivity goes on the next level where our work gets done so easily, I think security has to follow these footsteps and be at par. So users should never be in a situation where they have to constantly stay alert and not to click that link with granny's pictures. It's just gonna be solved like the second they click, the security solution is able to pick it up.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's where that was where we want to be. We want to be we're seamless. We're invisible. Yeah, we work in the background to keep you safe. When there is something wrong, we'll tell you about it, but we're not going to belittle you, or we're not going to be patronizing. We're just going to explain, this is the scenario, this is the situation, this is what we need to do to correct it. Because I'm probably, my worst trait is I always think people know what I know. I've been doing this for nearly 30 years. I'm talking to people that might have just joined the firm 2 weeks ago. So they're not going to understand all about malware and zero-day attacks and zero trust architectures and all that kind of stuff that I know. So I've got to explain to people, say, look, this is a problem. This is why it's a problem. And this is how we will fix it. And you want to be that person that people can come to. I don't want to be the big, scary IT security guy that shouts at people. I want to be the nice, friendly guy that people think, I've got a problem. Can I come and tell you about it?
Yeah, I think it would be so great once the stereotype gets broken.
Yeah.
I at times, whenever I play with ChatGPT, I would ask it, hey, help me generate an image of a security leader. And I never received an image of security leader not looking grumpy. So
yeah.
I'd love for the stereotype to be changed at some point.
Yeah, me too. I'm sure people did exactly the same. Thankfully, or hopefully, fingers crossed, that people do think that I'm approachable and will come and tell me. I think there's one or two that still think I'm a bit of a dinosaur and I'm going to shout at them or scream or get them sacked or something, and that's never going to happen. We always say we prefer you to tell us about it so we can deal with it rather than be afraid and not tell us about it. And the problem just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah, I've heard somewhere that the best employees to have at your company is this that made a certain mistake, because then they would try extra hard not to make it again.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I mean, if you make a mistake and you learn from it, and then if you're prepared to tell people that I made this mistake and, I learned from it, then everybody else learns from it. The worst kind is you make a mistake and you try and hide it. So it gets bigger and bigger, and then suddenly we're having to deal with 3 or 4 or a much bigger problem than would have been if they just confessed in the first place.
Yeah, definitely. So after 30 years, what's the most persistent security mistake you see people making, regardless of the technical sophistication?
Click on the link. Click on the wrong link. It's the Nigerian 419 scam. It's still going. It was going 30 years ago. It was going now. It'll be go when I'm retired and living in the country somewhere. And people do it, and it's still around because it works. You can send 1 million of these emails, and if 10,000 people click on it and put in their bank details, your day's work is done. It's simple, it's effective, and yet people still fall for it.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I think all these URL filters and everything, right now it's so easy to create a certain site and take it down as fast, and you just can't catch it unless you have very sophisticated mechanism behind it.
Yeah.
So you stayed at Grant Thornton for 22 years now. What kept you going?
It's the diversity. It's the difference, and every time it's something new, something changed, something different, something's built, something. I must be unique because I love my job. I love what I do. I love coming to work. I love the people I work with. They're great. They're great people. I work in a great team. I know what they can do. I know, so we complement our strengths. We for our weaknesses. We know how we all work together, and that is priceless. To get that, and we worked together a long time, so we've built it over time. But yeah, now I wouldn't exchange it for anything.
Wow, I think this is something that many people would aspire to get to, and there is no amount of money can compensate for the calmness of mind that you get at the job that you like really doing.
Yeah, definitely. Well, what's the old saying? Is if you find a job you love, you'll never work again.
Oh yeah,
I love what I do.
Yeah. You never work a day in your life.
Exactly. I don't look at this as work. I look at this as coming to see my friends and working and doing stuff that I enjoy doing anyway.
This is super fun. So following up on this, when do you think one should consider switching careers?
If you find that you are getting bored, then you should be looking for another job. I'm not superhuman. I've been, there are times in this time here I've thought, I don't want to do this. I'm fed up with this. I can't be doing with this, But luckily, something's changed that then means I can move on. But if you find that I no longer enjoy this at all, that's the time to change. And if you dread going to work, you should be changed anyway. You should have a new job lined up.
Yeah. So how many % do you think somebody has to hate their job to switch to another? Like, is it 20%? Is it 10%?
People have different tolerances. People think, but if you're, like I say, I wake up on a Monday and I want to go to work. I want to go and work for this company. I want to go see the guys, the guys. Sabika's brilliant. She knows an incredible amount of stuff, and I really enjoy working with Sabika. If you don't get that feeling, you either look at the job and say, how can I change that? Or you look for a new job. Yeah. And I think that's it. So I don't know, for me, it would be like sort of pretty high, 50, 60%. If I thought, this is it, then I would be looking for another job.
Yeah. Yeah. I think this is so important wherever you are, whether you're a senior or junior, this is very important to consider. Although I would say that the junior you are, the more open-minded you should be.
Absolutely. And don't be afraid to try something new. Yeah, don't stick in a job just because you think, oh, right, it's a good job, it's a safe job, I can do this for 40 years and da-da-da. When you're younger, be adventurous. Get out there. You look at you've got a great job.
Yeah, I love it. I mean, I do talking for a living, so I love that.
Great. That's fantastic. That's what I do. I just do it with computers as well.
Exactly. And I really, really do enjoy it.
Good.
We have this little tradition, John, on our podcast, where typically our previous guest would ask question to the next guest. So our previous guest asked this question to you. If cybersecurity challenges could be all solved today with a magic wand, what would cybersecurity leaders and groups do?
I would go and sit in my garden. I don't know. If they all got solved, if AI magically fixed everything, I still think technology is great and it changes every day and it's wonderful. But you've got to remember, this is a people business. People use computers to do their business, to do their jobs. They don't do them, they don't have them there for no reason. So with me, it's always that interaction between people and computers and how to do that safely. Now, if they do that safely, I'd have to retrain to say, right, well, how to do it, better. How to use your computer better. I finally have to learn how to touch type rather than kind of, making up with two fingers kind of thing. So, so if everything got fixed, I'd still be working with computers and people because that's the interaction. That's what really drives me.
Well, so I guess it's all about interaction and who you're talking to at the end of the day, whether it's security or not. So what question would you like to ask to our next guest?
Cool. I'm going to be really boring here, and apologies for this. But if you think, and I'm going to ask you, Alex, you have a password on your banking software, on your social media, yeah? When was the last time you changed it?
I changed it, must have been a week or 2 weeks ago.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well done. I ask this question to lots of people and they say, oh, wow, it's a year, 2 years, 5 years, never changed it. They set it up 10 years ago more and they've never changed it. And I mean, the kind of people say, oh, well, you should, I think the advice is you change it on a yearly basis and obviously make it a big, long, strong, or use MFA or use something like that. But it's one of the ones that tends to be forgotten about. And yes, we know that there's different, we're using, within our company, we're using facial recognition and Bluetooth tokens and all manner of kind of passwordless security. But passwords are here to stay for a little while longer. So while we still got them, just remember to keep changing them and make them sure that there's a nice, long, strong.
Yeah. I think password managers are great when it comes to it. And I think if you work at a cybersecurity company, one of the most embarrassing things that can happen to you is you get hacked.
Yeah,
And we saw example of cyber heaven happening, like not pointing fingers there, but I think it was a great lesson for a lot of leaders and not leaders to take into
absolutely.
consideration.
I'll put my hand up. My Instagram account was hacked 10 years ago, and my friends still don't let me forget it. There's an example of someone doing something, and me making a mistake. I had a nice simple password on my Instagram account. I thought nothing of it. It got compromised. It took ages, and all my friends, all the guys I work with, still remind me of it. That's 10 years. 10 years.
I'm sure by now it's like an insider joke whenever like, remember that time 10 years ago?
Remember that time? Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is a great question. And I think no matter who you are, whether you're a founder in the space, CISO, or let's say someone that also works in consulting, this is an universal question that everyone should take into consideration. And I'm looking forward to whoever is going to answer it and make sure to pass the answer to you.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So I enjoy this conversation so much. I think we've covered so many great topics. How you got into the space, someone that started as a chef ended up in being such a technical position. I still blows my mind how you can move so quickly and get where you are today.
Yeah.
We spoke about the threats today and what you should do about it, how you educate the users. What they should be doing and what they shouldn't be doing. For example, clicking that link with the grandma photos. You just have to stay so agile today. And it's honestly such a pleasure to see agile leaders today who aren't afraid to adopt the new tech, but at the same time know how to address it. So I really enjoyed our conversation. I think it was so much fun, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Lovely speaking to you.